story, people aren't going to buy in.
It's challenging your own viewpoints and using other people's views to kind of influence what you're doing.
Ready. Fight.
Creativity is what drives innovation and how we connect to other people.
That was an innovative thing to say, and I'm going to use that from now on.
The importance of combining your IQ and EQ, that's really something great.
Felt inspired to go out there and not just hold back.
Education doesn't need to feel like work. Like, you should feel like you're having a good time.
Well, that definitely felt like a good time at HEXpo in September 2023. Hi, everyone. I'm Jeanette. This is Jaclyn Benstead, my co-founder and the Chief Experience Officer of HEX. Jack, hey. That was HEXpo. That was a lot of fun.
That was HEXpo. That was definitely a very good time. That entire day was wonderful. But
I like
today's going to be wonderful too. The next hour is going to be wonderful.
Sure.
So,
yeah.
I'm going to do a proper introduction for you. You're not just Jeanette. You are the CEO and co-founder of HEX. You're in the top 100 innovators list. You've got a whole lot of awards. You're our CEO-stest with the mostest. And yeah, you're here with a background of corporate, of innovation, and obviously, heading up the team here at HEX. So everyone that's watching, this is the wonderful Jeanette Cheah. Round of applause at home, maybe just me.
Thanks, Jack. And let me reciprocate that one with, for anyone who hasn't met Jack before, the incredible Chief Experience Officer here at HEX. She is responsible end-to-end for student experience, staff experience, and stakeholders. And Jack has a background in sociology, 10 plus years in the tertiary sector. Also, I don't know, just casually used to brew beer and had a business selling cat tents, which got on Oprah and the front page of Reddit. Entrepreneur, maven in terms of niche products, as well as just being a good human, knows how to play drums, and just casually won the Swinburne Impact Alumni Award last year. So congratulations, Jack. Round of applause back for you. And now that we've introduced ourselves.
Yeah. Now I feel I need to introduce you again, honestly. Yours is way better than mine. Oh, no.
Not at all. But I do also want to acknowledge, since we're acknowledging each other, I'd like to acknowledge the fact that we are also dialing in from Wurundjeri land here in Melbourne, Australia. I'd like to pay our respects to elders past and present, because, we do have this incredible lands that we are living, working and teaching on every single day, and would like to make that acknowledgement this morning. And thank you, Jack, for joining me today for Education Futures. And thanks to everyone who's dialed in to say hi and to hear what we have to say about what's going on in this crazy world of education. But first of all, Jack, you are fresh off the plane, just a couple of days off the plane from spending the entire month of January in Singapore, running around different tech companies, working with students. Can you tell me a little bit about what you got up to during that time?
Yeah, absolutely. Still having a little bit of jet lag today, even though it's only 3 hours, but that slight change always has a small impact, especially because I was there for the full month. But we were running 2 of our 2-week innovation programs over in Singapore. So that's our flagship program where we take young founders all the way from the point of ideation to pitching in a really, really short, fast-paced period of time. So we take them all the way through understanding their market, understanding their customers, their market research. We do a tech toolkit. We teach them how to pitch. We teach them about their own leadership capabilities as well. And we get them really hyped up for being their own co-founder or founder or CEO of their own company. And then we sprinkle in a whole lot of little moments of delight as well, including, tech tours. As you mentioned, we went to Microsoft, we went to Google, we went to Grab, we met with Netflix, all sorts of wonderful companies and logos. And we offered mentoring, networking, and just a really, really good time. So we had, I think, 33 founders over in Singapore over the past couple of weeks. And it was just, absolutely fantastic.
Great work. And I think you mentioned a couple of big logos there, and particularly companies that are taking the lead when it comes to AI. And what better way to kick off Education Futures than a bit of a reference to that? So when you're sitting in the office at Google and listening to the people talk about Bing and Ultra, and then walking into the labs at Microsoft, can you give us a little bit of an idea of like what actually they were saying that was needed in the workplace when it comes to AI?
Yeah, I'm feeling very, very lucky to have some of these conversations with people that are really the decision makers at some of these large organizations, and love chatting to them about, where is this wonderful, magical future of AI actually taking us? And we were at Microsoft a couple of weeks ago and talking about, should we still be training people how to code to become developers? If ChatGPT can do it for us, why are we still going out there and teaching some tech, tech that might not really be around as a skill set in a few years? And one really useful or interesting piece of advice I was given was those people that are able to kind of bridge the gap between having knowledge and understanding of old systems and old technology. I mean, I'm already saying old technology, but that's able to code or understand, Python and that has those coding languages under their belt, but also has an understanding of new technologies and AI and the possibilities of how you can implement them. And people that can kind of be the translator between those two are going to make themselves incredibly invaluable in the future. So I think there's definitely a lot of job opportunities out there in moment for those that are currently going down that educational pathway for a future career in tech.
Absolutely. And I think that's probably our very first takeaway for Education Futures is this concept of translator nation. So not just taking an old tech into new tech, but also taking human intentions and being able to pass that in language that works for the AI. So I know that there's a lot of educators we speak to that are already getting their students to work with prompts. They're actually challenging them to use the tools in creative ways, and they're actually being surprised by the way that students are using the tools. So I'd actually love to hear from any educators that are dialing in with us today. If you'd like to pop questions or things you've observed into the chat around what's going on with your students or what you're curious about, concerned about, we'd absolutely love to make this an interactive chat. But so Jack, so Translator Nation, number one, what are you seeing about how AI is being integrated into the classrooms? Did you see some clues or signals from Google or Microsoft about how they might see it work in classrooms?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we even had a couple of our founders working on technology as well, which was specifically for people in the classroom. And it was all about seeing, okay, how can we maximize that face-to-face interaction that teachers actually have with students by taking out some of the, more admin heavy, kind of tasks that they need to do on a daily basis. And some of that is, if we can pick up how students' homework is coming through and if that can go through a particular system, and just having little data points that says, like this person's getting 10% better when it comes to their spelling or their grammar or their understanding of this language every single week. And you can kind of see the trajectory that they're going on. It enables you to come in if the trajectory is going the wrong way or there's a sudden dip where you can go, maybe that there's something wrong here. Maybe there's a conversation, needs to be had, or something's actually coming up on this student life. So that was one of our founders that was actually working on that. But while I was chatting to some of our friends at Google and Microsoft, I think one of the things that's really exciting for me when it comes to AI is it's not just a platform now on ChatGPT where you can go in and say, like, give me some interesting points to talk about with future of education or on this particular topic. It's more about like, how can we actually integrate it to save us time with the type of tasks that we are already doing? If it's if it's already part of Google, if it's picking up on our emails and goes, okay, this person really needs help. Do you want me to automatically schedule like a catch up with them for tomorrow, and putting that in your calendar? Or hey, I can see this ideas come through. Can I put that directly into a slide deck for you? So it's sort of, being able to integrate with the systems that you already have in place to hopefully, save you time so you can focus on the more important things like, supporting students.
Absolutely. I think we just saw a note coming out from Google Education today with 7 or 8 new features being launched for educators. And the themes that I keep seeing are, there is this operational saving of time, but then there's also increase of inclusion and creating safe spaces to broaden the accessibility of education, which I thought was an interesting application. And one of the ways I know that we've used it here at HEX is to use the AI tools to quickly translate into different languages. And I think that there's some really interesting themes here and signals about how a language supremacy or a language creation may no longer apply in the future of education. We might be able to see much more equitable access and also maybe ratings and gradings across different language groups. Do you have some thoughts on that, Jack?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like we've had Google Translate for a while now, but at the same time, we've never seen it. It's never been so easy to be able to communicate across, numerous languages, just almost automatically. So, I mean, whether that's automatically having videos to speak in your own native language, whether that's, particular websites or content or anything else. So because it's real time now, it means that we don't necessarily just need to look at, what are the top English speaking universities out there in the world right now? It could just be that, well, what are the top universities? Like maybe if I don't speak Mandarin, I can still consider applying for that particular university because it's so easy to be able to translate that the language across in real time for me. So yeah, I think the rise of AI especially is really going to impact on the accessibility of all universities or all educational institutions. And it's not going to be prohibitive just because you have to go for the ones in your main language. So I think that's going to be really interesting.
Interesting, like the decline of the importance of your mother tongue. There was actually a funny video that I logged onto Slack one day and I saw the HEX team had changed a video that I'd made and I was speaking fluent German and my mouth was moving as if I was speaking fluent German. And it was very impressive and also quite terrifying because it was in my voice and on my face. So anyway, lots of exciting things coming up there. And just finally,
sorry. It could also be the right, if you're not having to, if everyone's not having to learn English, maybe it's going to be something that actually saves language. And that saves your mother tongue as well, because if you're able to, already communicate without having to go to the distance of learning English. So maybe, maybe it's something that actually preserves language. Who knows?
Could do. And implications from IELTS tests and all that kind of thing as well. We'll come back later to discuss maybe some clever ways we're seeing educators using or working around things like AI for grading, but I'll come back to that because what I want to go to now is actually the concept of this, this very TikTok style learning. Again, not super new, but we do know that students, young people, even adults like myself are finding micro learning moments on platforms like TikTok, on YouTube Shorts. And it's very much this just in time style of learning. Can you tell us how that relates into the workforce that you're seeing out in the market, Jack?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, the expectation is if you come into a job, you don't necessarily already know how their platform works, or if you've never used Slack before, but that's the communication tool that everyone in the company uses. So the expectation is you actually go and you learn that because you're starting that role. So I think just-in-time learning is becoming sort of more and more important, especially as technology kind of speeds up and as we have access to new things every single, I was about to say every week, but it's every day it seems there's some sort of, new tech or new platform that's actually happening. So, being able to go, okay, well, what skills do I actually need and when do I need them? And then learning it just before you actually have to use it, I think makes a really big difference. And it stops you from, spending years of your life potentially, again, learning a particular, platform only for it to be replaced in a year's time.
Absolutely.
By something else. Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
And this is definitely something we talk about at HEX being, it's not necessarily about digital literacy anymore. It's more about digital fluency and the ability to very quickly learn how to use a thing that you need at that exact moment. Now, Yoshi, thanks for your question. Primary school teacher, amazing. Right at the start. Thank you so much for the work you do. Okay, what specific skills do kids need to develop at a young age to have more opportunities in the tech space? Oh, young age. I mean, Jack, I'm going to go to you because you have a almost 2-year-old in your house, a couple of years away from from primary school yet, but what do you immediately think that young kids might need to develop, or what are you seeing?
Yeah, I actually think like one thing that I'm really trying to foster is that sense of curiosity. Because I think that that's going to be a really important, again, like what we're talking about is what you're thrown new tech and new platforms and new everything all the time. So that ability to kind of adapt and just say, okay, this is happening now. It's okay. The world is not going to end. It's a little bit scary, but I'm sure I can do it. And then the curiosity to kind of dig into it a little bit more and become really, really comfortable. So, I mean, that's something that, I'm starting with Archie at the ripe old age of 1, between, trying to get his Cookie Monster addiction under control. But yeah, I think that's, something that's going to put them in really good stead as they go through year 12 and into tech. As I said, it's really hard. We can't say there's a specific type of coding language. It's more about understanding how everything works and fits together. And by fostering that kind of curiosity up front, I think that'll make a really big difference.
Well, this is actually probably leads into the HEX concept of exponential intelligence, and some on the call, on the show, whoever, some of our audience might have heard us talk about exponential intelligence before, but for those who haven't, HEX really thinks about XQ as being the complement to IQ, being your cognitive intelligence, EQ being your emotional intelligence, and XQ being your exponential intelligence. So this is kind of a metric where it helps to predict whether you're going to be an excellent future leader in a technology-driven, fast-moving world. And what we've actually done is we've mapped out 30 different capabilities under mindset, skill sets, and tool sets. And we believe that those 30 capabilities are learnable, and that curiosity is absolutely one of them. And we're actually very happy to share that with the whole audience post this program. But essentially, the mindsets are, how do you think about the world you're in? It comes down to even just community building. It comes down to grit and resilience. And then there's also the skill sets, like the practical things that you know how to do, whether that's public speaking, whether it's kind of problem solving. And then finally, the tool sets. What do you know how to use? So things like big data sets. Can you teach kids at a young age how to just understand and work with data, even though they might not be learning algorithms at the age of 7? So we're very happy to share the XQ framework with everyone out there, because we think that that is something that can apply from early primary all the way through to adult learning. So thank you so much for that question. Zoe, hi, nice to see your comment pop up on screen. What are our thoughts on using technology to teach children to read? Are we seeing teachers keeping to traditional methods or technology? Jack, do you have some initial thoughts on this one for Zoe?
Yeah, well, I'm going to speak a little bit from personal experience here. So I'm actually dyslexic, and I had a lot of trouble reading when I was younger. And I think it's because I did go through the British schooling system for a little while, which was very rigorous. And it wasn't until, I think I came back to the Australian schooling system, which was that little bit more flexible and had that little bit more sort of individual learning, that I really started to find my feet with it all. Flash forward, I graduated from an MBA, managed to dux it, which was quite nice. So, it hasn't had too much of a negative impact. If anything, it's enabled me to sort of think in a slightly different way when I look at particular situations. But, I guess from my perspective, understanding how different way people learn, I'm all for using, new technology to being able to enhance that. We all know that people have different learning styles. Some people are very visual learners. Some people, like to be able to take information away and go and absorb it. So, utilizing a tool like AI, for me, I think really kind of enables people to individualize that learning, to have an AI tool that can kind of understand how a particular learner likes to absorb information and is able to create that kind of personalization to help them make the most of, their own education.
Jay, what do you think? Great. And it's not even just the AI tools, but even I think if you go all the way down to very early learning, the little apps on tablets where children are learning to trace letters and numbers using their fingers. I mean, I think that is kind of a very rudimentary style of using technology and digital tools to help literacy and to learn how to read. I remember being young and having Teddy something, which would audio read out the books as you followed along. And so I think that there's a lot more ways that we can use, not even all the way to AI, but like kind of just standard digital technology to support parents and teachers as they go through that. But great question, Zoe, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah.
Now
I also love the. Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm like here's my opinion again. Sorry. No, I also love the idea of real-time feedback as well. You know, as a learner, there's just something about being able to do something and then straight away having, you know, without worried about like what a teacher says, whether I got it right, what they're going to think of me, just something that just picks up and just says, oh, this one's wrong, and being able to, you know, go in and change it. Something like Grammarly is something I use every day, literally with all of my emails. And the fact that it just tells me if I've spelled something wrong initially. So it's being able to have that sort of real time sort of feedback, I think makes a real sort of difference to learning too.
Yeah.
Okay,
Especially
sorry,
for
Jake.
shy kids. No, especially for shy kids that don't want to put up their hand and ask a question. And I think there's something really interesting here about sort of the future where we could input a piece of information to be learned, and it could spit out multiple different ways to learn that, whether it's visual, audio, interactive, long read. And I think we had one of our young founders pitch an idea to that effect about a year ago. I don't know whether he's built it yet, but if he hasn't, there's enough free idea for anyone out there who wants to build something in the future. Okay, so something we're seeing, and I understand we've got a couple of early educators on the call, but I'm going to bring us a little bit older into kind of the upper high school sort of space. But what we're seeing a trend of is students really being keen on, and I'm going to call it going pro early. So they're looking at kind of all of these ways to make money. Whereas I worked at Hungry Jack's at the age of 14 doing drive-through and birthday parties. So that was a whole different part of my life. But that was my version of my first job. But these days, students are looking at monetization on various platforms like YouTube. They understand that they can sell e-commerce products pretty much straight away. There's students in their primary and high school selling physical products, getting things developed and delivered from overseas, I think, and even just selling digital products on platforms like Etsy. I think that you're seeing this idea of I can make money in my first job early and online. And then equally, when they're looking at kind of moving into the professional world, they're not seeing the need to wait the whole 4 years of their degree before they get their job. So I think we're seeing a lot more concurrency of students starting their work, getting jobs, and kind of building their own digital portfolios and their work portfolios while they're still at school at uni. Is this something that you're seeing as well, Jack, in the students you work with?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even last night we were on a call with something like 80 students as part of HEX High, and we were asking them, you know, what do you think being an entrepreneur is all about? What do you think, startups are all about? And, you know, everyone just had their own ideas. Like, what do you want to be in the future? Everyone's like, I want to be a millionaire. I want to be there was a couple of trillionaires in there as well. So we'll see where that goes. But, you know, I was the same. I worked hospo. In fact, I actually think it should be mandatory that everyone does a year of hospitality. You know, like how some countries have like mandatory, you know, military service year. I think that we should all have mandatory hospo service for a year. I think it's good for all of us. But yeah, no, I think the type of mindsets we saw coming through last night were, you know, I'm aiming, you know, I want to be the best. I want to build something. I want to be a CEO. I want to I want to be a millionaire. So
yeah,
exactly. And even, you know, people wanting to build their network. So I think a lot of the terminology that we're using with, you know, older founders or university founders is really starting to sort of seep into high school as well, where they talk about like expanding their network, you know, getting some experience, making sure that they've got some, you know, runs on the board while they're applying for their, you know, whether it's university or their first jobs or whatever it might be. Oftentimes I've had a few chats with 15-year-olds who are frustrated because there's no LinkedIn equivalent. So I think you have to be 16, I think maybe, to go onto LinkedIn. And so they're like, well, like, where is my LinkedIn? Like, you know, how can I network and create in a safe way that's suitable for teenagers? but at the same time continue to start there and kickstart their professional career. So yeah, it's interesting. It's
exciting.
It's a good mindset. Yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah, and for educators, like a nice challenge, just because you need more on your plate, right? But a nice challenge to think about how you can start to weave in their excitement and motivation to go pro early into the work that you're doing in the classroom and even in the co-curricular programs that you offer. So it's a nice kind of way for you to start thinking about how can you frame assignments and challenges and marking to tap into that instinct of young people that they want to be professionals earlier.
Yeah, and embrace it. If they want to be a billionaire, be like, all right, let's make this happen. How are you going to do it?
Yeah.
What are you going to sell? How much of it do you need to sell? What's going on? So yeah.
Cool. Now, Nick has got a question on screen. So thank you, Nick, and thanks for joining us this afternoon. So Nick's question is about how is tech applied or best applied for test prep and better habits of fluency, written, typed. Now, my instinct here, Nick, and I'd love to hear what you think. Feel free to come back at me in the chat. But I think that what the beauty of what is coming out with all the technology tools is this ability to individualize what works for that person. I'll be really honest with you. I don't have hardcore stats around whether typing or written is actually better. But I think that you can start to, as Jack was saying earlier, using immediate feedback for test prep can help people do more preparation faster. I think you could probably help to sort of prompt them in a certain way. If there's a particular topic that they're really struggling with, maybe there could be some automation of giving them more questions in that space to kind of build up that muscle. But I really do see the individualization of learning being where tech comes in handy for test prep. Jack, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I completely agree. It's that, like, tech is an amazing tool. I don't want people to stop being able to write or to be so reliant on things like ChatGPT that they don't know how to string a sentence together. So it's how is it sort of best implemented? And I think when it comes to test prep, I think it makes complete sense to be able to have that kind of real-time learning and feedback. But yeah, at the same time, being able to go, okay, well, you've written this. How do you then communicate it? Can I ask you some questions on it? Can I make sure that your thoughts are in some? I love the fact I'm talking about coherent thoughts, and I'm still trying to get my thoughts to be more coherent. Are we able to have a conversation?
Oh, sorry to interrupt you. Mini lag. I think this feeds a little bit into what I was thinking about before, which is how some educators are finding really clever ways to test and assess around the use of technology. So you just mentioned maybe you can use technology to write your essay, but can I do an interview with you about it to see if you've kind of absorbed the content? Can you hold your argument verbally? I've seen other teachers get students to deliberately use the ChatGPT tools to generate their answers, and then they get the students to actually mark the ChatGPT for accuracy. So they're actually getting the students to think critically about what's coming out of the results. And then there's some other really great ways I've seen young people use technology like Notion and other tools for that habits and fluency, sort of organizing their thoughts and organizing their studies. And I think if you're a type A personality and you like to automate things, there's so much out there for you to kind of keep your days running smoothly. I am chaos in person, personified. So a little bit of automation does help me, but also, I'm much more of I love a notepad. That's my style.
I think there's some great habit trackers and things out there. So, things like streaks, anything that gamifies it, I love. So anything that tells me it's like, oh, you've done this 5 days in a row, or you've managed to remember to walk the dog, or you can use it same way that exercise tools and apps kind of help you with that kind of habit for building up exercise. You can use the exact same things for reading or education or studying or whatever it might be. So I'm a big fan of gamified streak apps.
We should get some streaks going here at HEX. So I see that somebody in the team from HEX has actually just mentioned that we see young people already calling themselves things like CTO and vice president. And I think I wanted to bring up from this the concept of the CEO internship. or something to that effect. So if you think about the traditional work experience or internship concept where you might go to your dad's office like I did and learn how faxes worked, which I did. I was blown away by the fact that we could put something in a machine and it came out in Japan. I thought that was the most incredible thing in the world. So instead of that kind of work experience, what we're actually seeing is the rise of the CEO internship where students are allowed to go and build their businesses or their ideas or come up with a social enterprise project. But the internship and work experience is kind of more of a scaffold. So it's kind of within a safe space with there's mentors, there's some supervisors, but they're not actually being told to do a particular project or to photocopy a bunch of things. They're actually being encouraged to build their own ideas within the safety of a CEO internship. So this is something we're really excited about at HEX. And Jack, this is basically what you ran last month in Singapore, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's two major factors to this that I think make it really, really successful. And I think it's what we were talking about before with the just-in-time learning. When you are creating your own business or your own social enterprise or your own charity, you're literally just solving problems as they come up. It's that you can't go out and just be like, I'm going to create a business overnight. You just have to, have a vision, have somewhere that you're aiming for, and then like piece by piece, problem by problem, figure out how to solve it. And so that just-in-time learning piece where you go, okay, now I guess I need to register my domain or run Google ads or figure out who my market is. That's when you ask for a mentor in that space or look at some YouTube videos or TikTok or whatever it might be and figure out the skills that you need to actually move to the next problem that you then solve. So I think that's one kind of important aspect of it. The other is, if you tap into a student's passion, I think this probably applies to, all ages of students. I'm obviously, most familiar with the slightly older student in the room, but I think if you can really, tap into a student's passion for something, it makes the entire way of learning just so much easier because they have that interest or automatically, whether it's, I'm all about making sure that we solve climate change. This is my passion. This is what I want to do. So if you can build a business or an idea around that, you automatically have that sense of curiosity. Like it's automatically rolling. People automatically absorb that information. So I think they're the two major aspects of it because you already have that passion, and then it's the just-in-time learning, and you kind of combine it into the CEO internship. And I think it's one of the most valuable ways of, experiential learning that there is.
Yes, it's really true. And I remember there was one student that was so passionate about feeding her turtle that she built everything through the lens of successfully feeding her turtle. So we don't need to go into the details. Maybe catch up with us for a drink one day. We'll tell you that story. But while we're thinking about, these future careers and CEO internships, another thing we are seeing is this rise of the portfolio career, right? And we see people, I'll use a young person we know, Julia, as an example. She works part-time here at HEX, which is great, 4 days a week, but pretty much doing a full-time load. She also helps to commercialize art projects. So she just recently put on an art show. She does her own e-commerce kind of work. She also built a recruitment business on the side. I mean, this is the kind of, and she's just 2 years out of university. So I think about the kind of portfolio careers that people are choosing for themselves. And I wonder how that could then translate into the way that educators are putting together programs, curriculum, classroom experiments, how we start to talk to students about their careers in sort of, upper primary and high school. So do you have some thoughts on how we can kind of bring the portfolio career structure into education?
Yeah, definitely. I love the portfolio career. I think it enables you to sort of, explore all the different interests that you have. And every now and again, they overlap, and it's a beautiful moment because you feel like you're the very best person at this point in time to be dealing with that particular situation of two niches that you're really into. So I think, the portfolio career is something that that employers, I think, really, really recognize. And so it makes sense to look at it from an educational lens too. So I almost think that this kind of comes back to what we were talking before about TikTok learning, or, micro learning, micro credentials, because it's the same way that we have, little bits and pieces of our jobs where we work on something every Friday for 6 months on a particular project, or we work part-time here, but then we also have this other project that we're working on. We kind of could take that scaffolding into our more bite-sized micro-learning, sort of TikTok learning, where it becomes a little bit more sort of decentralized, where people are able to follow an area of interest that they're particularly in, and you can kind of capitalize that and go down that rabbit hole of that learning and that interest. And I think that there are tools out there that exist, like blockchain, where you're able to kind of, see this decentralized education system and still connect all the points to show that you've created this amazing educational journey and that you've done all these learnings. And if you're able to like a rich tapestry of education and pull it together and say, hey, this is everything that I've done. Like, we haven't been in a position before as a society to be able to capture that before and demonstrate it and show it. So I think for me, being able to kind of lean into that kind of, community-based learning environment or decentralized learning environment might be really well suited to the future sort of portfolio career.
Wow,
Sorry,
points were made right there. So we're looking at the decentralized portfolio career and then looking at a decentralized portfolio of education, which I guess if translated to the typical badging and credentials, it is really about a collection of micro-credentials or a collection of different choices. And I do want to shout out to one of HEX's partners over at Our Lady of Mercy College in Parramatta. They're piloting a concept called the multi-credential, where they're actually looking to see if they can bring in a universe of different options into the school co-curricular program that become embedded into the curriculum. So I'm not sure exactly, I'm not explaining it badly, so please go and speak to them instead of me. But if you do want more information, we can share that afterwards too. Yoshi, great question. I guess just to bounce off this, so potential to integrate the just-in-time learning with the curriculum. Well, yes, I think there's definitely people out there looking at ways to do it. This is one way with the multi-credentials and bringing in lots of different things to pull it together. I am going to take this opportunity to let you know that I think we've somehow managed to crack the system a little bit or hack the system. So HEX programs, which are short, sharp, intensive, have all now been accredited by the University of Sydney as an undergraduate level. So they get credit points, which is basically a credit transfer system that can be taken to universities around the world. And what we are seeing now is that this could translate into, for example, the ATAR system. We've successfully had the Queensland Authority and the South Australian Authority, so SACE and QCAA, have approved HEX programs also for year 11 and 12 students. So I think this is where, I'm very proud of the team. I think we are an example of the green shoots in this area, but we are by far not the only ones who can help to build this out. So for this, you need a combination of really forward-thinking educators. You need some really clever regulators who understand that the future is moving faster than necessarily they can keep up with. And then you need a provider who you can trust and who has had the trust of others. Because I think when we are looking after the young minds of students, we need to make sure that trust is the speed at which we move at. However, the industry speeding ahead. So Yoshi, that's thanks for the question. And I promise to everyone else on the line that was not a setup question for me to be able to talk about the great work that the HEX team is doing. Yeah. Now, Jack, I want to actually bring back this concept of for the educators themselves, right? Now, they're the ones who are in front of students every day. They've got a million things on their plates. Now they're being told they have to figure out a bunch of different technologies. And also, by the way, you need to be able to learn how to, grade a ChatGPT essay, and there's all sorts of things. But we're seeing a role of the concierge educator. Could you talk to me a bit about what that means to you? And we can maybe discuss whether other educators feel this way.
Yeah, well, I think, that's exactly what we're already talking about is, if you, it's not about being, okay, I'm an expert in all of the hundreds of things that you're really interested in, but it's about saying, okay, I'm going to provide an amazing learning environment to help you go down these paths. And, potentially I might be able to help, credit that back. if it's, a university program where you're going out and doing an internship and you're doing a different experiential learning. I think Deacon, we used to have something on a boat that you'd go sail for a little while, but I think it's really important for the concierge educator to go, okay, it's okay that I am not absolutely across all of these different areas, but how do I partner with the right people or put the right people in front of my cohort or in front of my students that gives them the opportunity to explore this really interesting area? And how do I then make sure that what they've done and the work they've done is then recognized as part of like a rich tapestry of their education? So I think that's something that's happening obviously in the university space. We've had work integrated learning and internships and things like that for a little while. They're also I used to work over at the University of British Columbia, and they had something called like interdisciplinary studies, which is kind of essentially this as well, where it's saying, okay, we're going to recognize you for being able to go out and do subjects from a whole lot of different faculties. And really, we think that the value is going to be having people that have this this knowledge from these very unique perspectives and bringing it together. So I think the concierge educator, it's more about creating the space and the opportunities and the kind of holistic experience without having to be the one that deep dives into each and every one of these aspects.
Yeah, absolutely. And something we have been doing in terms of sourcing experts that actually know how to do the thing and put them in front of our students instead of us pretending to be experts at everything from Figma design to Netflix culture building to business models at, Grab. So I think it's a really good opportunity for educators to start looking at how they build out those professional networks beyond the space. And I recently did a workshop over at Camberwell Girls Grammar School for about 60 of their education leaders. And something that came up a little bit was this feeling of, I'm an absolute expert and I'm well networked within education, but I'm not sure how to start making those connections outside of the school or outside of the the community that we're in. And for that, I would just say, for everyone watching us, please look at us as a resource. Please treat us like your mates. We're happy to make warm introductions. We're happy to support you if we can help to bridge what you're going through every day in the classroom with what's happening in technology and industry. Please look to us for that. We're happy to be of assistance and service. Now, speaking of being concierges, another sort of take on this, and something that I've heard from a group of futurists actually recently, is the concept of the curated classroom or the curated cohort. So the thinking here is that content is great, sure, but content is kind of ubiquitous. You can get it from everywhere. But what you cannot get is the unique mix of people that happen to be in a classroom or group. And I think if you think about it from maybe adult learning perspective, it's really exciting to say, oh, you get to be in a cohort with particular experts from different companies or people from different countries, or a little bit of, intergenerational peer mentoring. And so that's something that adult learning is doing quite regularly in terms of those personality-driven courses. But if you bring it all the way back to high schools, primary schools, even kindergarten, I think you could translate this to curated group work. So really being quite specific and distinctive about how you're mixing up a cohort to get things done. And Jack, I know that diverse cohorts is something that you're really passionate about. Do you want to talk to us about what you've seen work in the programs?
Yeah, definitely. So, I think one of the best things that came out of my MBA was literally my network. There's so much I've forgotten in regards to financial spreadsheets and activity-based costing and best practice. And yeah, I know you're like, really, Jack, you actually study that. I mean, it's a network. It's the network that you have out of those sort of experiences where you get to know everyone and appreciate everything that they're bringing to the table. So, I mean, I guess my opinion is like the earlier that starts, the better. And what we do on the programs is we're very strategic with how we put a cohort together. And it's not just diversity when it comes to, gender split. It's diversity of thought, diversity of area of academic discipline. So not all the young founders are at university, but most of them are. So we make sure that, there's first year marketing on the same cohort with a PhD archaeology student, with a, 2 MBAs, with someone that, dropped out and didn't even go to university. And by having all of these different perspectives, it actually makes for a far better cohort and a far more, I think people can start to barter their skills a little bit, which is what happens in the real world, right? Like when you actually have to go out and create something and do something, you need to learn, okay, well, I'm not wonderful at financial spreadsheets. Who do I know that is? What can I do to, develop my relationship with them, offer something in exchange, and really learn to lean into the stuff that I'm really good at and offering that to the group as well. So yeah, academic discipline, diversity, I think socioeconomic status, background's not always possible in a school environment. But, again, just the more diverse brains that you have in the room, I always think makes for a better cohort and a better experience. But it does take a little bit of time as almost like a facilitator to get everyone to really lean in on what they're good at and appreciate their own skill set, and then appreciate the skill sets of others as well. So
absolutely, it's a little shortcut to helping students really reflect on what they're bringing to the table, as you say. Exactly. Now, there's a role that, and I know we're sort of coming to the end of lunch hour, so I want to wrap this up with this last point. But there's a role that I think is going to be, or a department that's going to start to exist at schools and universities and other education facilities. And it's the rise of student experience. Now, I know that student experience is definitely already a thing, but let me just contextualize it a little bit. So when I was working in the banks, I was kind of long time in financial services, and CX came out of nowhere. Like everyone's like, what is CX? I want a job in CX. Like customer experience is now one of a very well-known area of work in corporate sector. And it's very much about taking the perspective of the customer, taking them on a full journey in and out, all the different touch points, how their mood changes during an experience with a company. And that was fairly new when I was in the bank. And then there was a big spike in people learning how to do it. And then there's kind of now this evening out of it's a really well-established career. And I think the same is going to happen with SX. I think we're going to see student experience as a bespoke role, not just something that educators are expected to do off the side of their desks. I can see it as being almost a promotion or a new department, like a sideways move that someone could make inside their organization to say, I'm going to lead the touch points of every single time that a student or a parent interacts with this school. And I think that this is pretty exciting, because when I look at the way that the banks were disrupted or interrupted by the fintechs, like all the little tiny fintech startups. What the fintechs would do was they would take a small slice of the bank's features and make it beautiful. And then what would generally happen was they would get brought back into the banks and they would absorb that new structure. So I kind of see that this could happen in the world of edtech and education, where there's such a big behemoth of features and experiences. And some edtechs might come in and just take a little slice of what you do really well, whether it's facilitation or whether it's onboarding or career counselling or whatever it is, and really make it beautiful. And then it might get absorbed back in. So anyway, that's just like my prediction for roles and maybe structures that could emerge in the world of education and edtech working together. Feel free to roast me if you have different opinions.
No, I mean, I was in student services for many, many years at a whole lot of different universities. And I think, we are trying, but we sort of do it in silos where we're like, okay, we're going to make this app like a really wonderful experience, or we're going to make the, I know the orientation team work really hard to make, orientation just a lovely, beautiful experience and like easy to navigate with signage. And I know that, Swinburne did some super interesting stuff with, having like an online campus. Like there's a whole lot of, parts of this that do already happen in a lot of educational institutions, but they do tend to happen a little bit in silos. So yeah, just the way that there's customer experience, like a CXO and with HEX, being able to see the end-to-end experience. Like I absolutely see this as being more and more of a role when it comes to student experience as well, where it's like, okay, let's holistically look at how we communicate with people, how they communicate with us. Are they already on WhatsApp? Should we just be WhatsApping them? Because even though it seems a little crazy at first, it's actually going to cut down on 99% of the time that it takes to get this person an answer, because they're emailing 10 different people within the university. How are they already communicating? What's the environment like? What does the classroom look like? I think even things like, we just mentioned my little ones in daycare. And just when you walk into any daycare, it's all about like the colors, and then you have like the sleepy corner and the doll corner and all these other areas. And I think like it's so curated that the classroom is part of the experience of being there and learning as well. Can we sort of look at the student experience at all levels and put the same lens on it? Is, what does it feel like being here? How does it feel communicate with student services? How does it feel learning? And then you can kind of dig a little deeper and say, okay, well, when are they coming to class? Like, what needs to be asynchronous? What needs to be synchronous? How do we actually partner with the right gives the opportunity? So yeah, I think this is definitely a bigger job for the future. That's
be great. So any ambitious educators, you're going to go for the title of SXO, Student Experience Officer, or Chief SX. I don't know what we're going to call it. But that's just our little tip. That's pretty much us for the afternoon. I just want to say thank you to those who have joined us and asked questions and hyped up the chat a little bit. Really appreciate you spending your lunch hour with myself and Jack. If you do want to hang out with us a little bit more, I've got a couple of things to mention. First of all, if you are in Melbourne next week, we're running an innovation sprint, and we've got a couple of networking nights and things coming up. So do follow our social media to see where and when those are. Our first few drinks will be on us. Also, there'll be a demo day, so if you want to come and see a few pictures from young founders, please do feel free to come and join. It's open to the public. And of course, if you are interested in seeing if we can bring any kind of good HEX energy into your classroom, we do have HEX High Accelerator, which is targeted for year 9, 10 and 11. And that all includes accreditation from Uni Sydney, assuming they pass, as well as there's a leadership and communications HEX professional unit starting at the end of March. So a bunch of stuff coming up. Feel free to just follow our social medias. Please do connect with myself and Jack. We are thrilled to be here and talking about the future of education, because it is what we could nerd out on for hours. Okay. Thank you, Jack, for joining me.
No, thank you, Jeanette, for having me.
All right, and thanks everyone for joining. We will see you soon.
Have a good day.
The world of work can feel like chaos.
Oh no!
But don't worry, this is your sign to start something new with HEXED. Bring your ideas to life, work on real problems, and learn from experts at the world's best companies. Forget boring PowerPoints that waste your time. Log in to the future of learning. So put yourself back in the game and accelerate your next move. Time to level up and become the next big deal. Whatever your next move, start with HEX.